Okay.
Very happy to have with us Aaron Burnett, the New York City-based tenor saxophonist. Aaron has 5 records out under his name. He's been performing for, probably close to 2 decades, I would say. He's played with people like Kurt Rosenwinkel and Esperanza Spalding, Teri Lyne Carrington, based in New York City. So, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me here.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about, your journey becoming your own voice on the instrument, because I remember when I heard you close to 20 years ago at Berklee, there was something about the way you play technically. I don't think I had ever heard anyone play that way at Berklee. So were you trying to be more of a technical player when it came to improvisation in the beginning? Was that something you consciously focused on?
Honestly, I was like transcribing a lot. I was transcribing like, Ravi Coltrane, Kim Garrett back then. And then I was just, I started writing my own music and I was like, maybe it's better if I like kind of go along with like how the old guys used to do it, like at the master's school. You just like you develop your sound, but you pay attention to the lineage and like the language that happened before, so you can incorporate that in your playing. But it's I think the point is to have your own sound because that's the distinctive thing that separates people in jazz.
Unquestionably. And I even heard you say in an interview too, I did a little bit of my research because we haven't seen each other for a bit. I heard you say that I went to Berklee, but I learned jazz all off the records.
Yeah, I learned it off records and going to sessions. Because I think it's like it's kind of really hard to teach somebody how to play jazz. That was always like that's why at Berklee I went with classical composition because like the jazz performance department I was horribly bored. I was like, man, I'm just gonna go listen to some records. Like, I'm not.
So studying the classical definitely kind of took you away from the, quote unquote traditional jazz education.
Well, I was studying Venetian school, like modern classical, and like also like Ravel and Debussy and stuff like that. And then I would bring in like especially some of the 12 tone stuff. And I would the one teacher I really liked at Berklee was George Garzal because he's like I'm all about this. Like just keep going.
So he encouraged you. That's,
Oh yeah, he was like the biggest encouragement I had.
that's so nice to see. Like when you hear about it, because he's a master in himself. And you've gotten a chance to do, since, Berklee, we're going back a long time already. You've been in New York for
16 years,
16 years you've been in New York.
a long time.
Yeah, I mean, are you still as inspired as you were in the beginning, being in New York, or is your attitude changed about it a little bit? Because I remember when you first got to New York, you were definitely someone people were speaking about, and you had that. Is the drive still the way it was 16 years ago? How has it changed?
Well, I mean, I think it's just more refined now. I think that like when I bring energy or if I like really, really play, it's like you can hear everything. It's like, I think back in the day, it was a little bit more like the tone was a little harsher. But nowadays, it's like very smoothed out because I play with so many singers, it's just like, that changes the way you play, like pretty much instantaneously, especially singers on that level. Esperanza, Spalding, and I just did a tour. I was touring 5 times this year with Corrine Bailey Rae, and the album that I'm on with her, it got nominated for a Mercury Prize. She almost won.
Yeah, I forgot to mention too. You have a couple Grammy, awards under your name as well. So uh,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I apologize for that. And I wanted, this is good because when I started doing this podcast, I was just reading off questions, but now I just want to have more of a conversation, which kind of brings me to if someone heard that, oh, you won a Grammy, like they would kind of equate that with success. Now, today, people think success is I have 1 million followers or I got to tour with this person. And you don't strike me as being that way, thinking in terms of success that way specifically. What does success mean to you as an artist?
I think success would be, to have really good management of like everything that you're doing. Like for instance, for me, I DJ, I play all the horns, I produce, I compose. Like it's a lot of different things. So gonna have to like streamline it all, like so people know. So I kind of like package it all in one thing. I said, you know what, I do jazz tronica. How about that? You know, just put it all in one thing. Then nobody's got to ask no questions about what's going on here. You know, and it's just like because I feel like my biggest problem is that I do so many things that people like don't know what I can actually do. So like I played with Black Dynamite last night. I played for Mike, you know, Mike Mitchell. I played for his birthday, and cats were just like, I didn't know you played like bluesy soulful stuff. I'm like, bro, I play with Corrine Bailey Rae, like with Esperanza. I have to play like that. You know, it's like, you know, you have to complement the vocals, and like that's really changed my whole perspective of like tone and like stuff like that.
Playing with the vocalist has been the game
Oh
changer for
yeah,
you.
like that's the best gig like, you know, unless I get my own stuff, like you know, I'm working on I would consider it like not technically rebranding, but like just like paying because you know I've always been like just like a musician's musician. Like I kind of like wanted to. I never really really paid attention to like the branding and the marketing and stuff like that. But now that I'm older, I'm like, oh wow, this is just so important to do this. You know, especially playing saxophone because like you know you gotta like have something that makes people come to your shows and like you know it's just like it's a numbers game. That's why if you have like you know I have 2 Grammy certificates, right? I can use that to book stuff, and I can use it to like say, oh yeah, I got a good resume. But like when it really bottles down to it, you got to have people that support it. And if you don't have that,
Definitely.
then it's just like you know you might as well teach.
Yeah, and you've had the opportunity to do so much, and that's the thing. You're trying to compartmentalize it all into one thing, I would say. And that's definitely got to be tiring.
Oh, it's the toughest thing in the world because like if I'm playing like straight ahead jazz, people are like, oh wow, that's good. I want to go see that. But then I do like an electronic thing where it's house music, and then that's just like a whole separate group of people. So I'm just like, okay, I gotta like put this all together. You know, get everybody coming to you know because all those different aspects make it fun. You know, it's like 3 different things you can see. So I gotta like actually let people know that that's happening because I'm not very good at that sometimes.
No, yeah, I like how you said you're a musician's musician too, because sometimes people feel that they get a break of some sort. And, you know, I always thought that I think Torch sent me a video of you playing with Esperanza at Newport, like way back in the day.
Oh yeah, that's 2011. Yeah.
And I was like, yes. I was like, this is great. Now, I was happy for you in a way that I'm like, getting to go on that stage and, and she had a big name for herself and she had a big name too. Did that feel like it was going to take you to another level in terms of your career?
I honestly, I was so like excited that she even called me for that. But the funny thing is, like the day before that, I had this scooter, and I was like scooting up and down, like I think it was on Metropolitan. I hit this big hole in the road, fell directly on my face. So the day of the gig, I'm literally like, I literally have like a chipped tooth, like it's chipped, like my lips busted, like I'm just happy I even sounded good on that gig because I had to play on one side of my mouth.
That's crazy. Uh, yeah, I remember you had your tooth was chipped for a bit. I didn't that's the reason why. I'm just
No,
learning this now.
I got it fixed and re-chipped it from,
Yeah. Oh,
and
you
I never
re-chipped it
rode a
again?
scooter again. I never rode a scooter again. That's it. I was like, yeah, scooters, nah, this is not a good idea. Scooter, and I see people riding them all the time. I'm like, man, you're risking your life.
I don't get on scooters, so I'm not going to comment on that.
Yeah, me neither.
So I also, wanted to ask you too, like you said, we're talking about 16 years of doing, this, professionally. What's something you wish you knew now? I mean, what if you could have learned something earlier on that you know now, what would that be? Like the branding stuff you're
Oh,
talking
it'll
about?
be totally branding and marketing on social media and emailing people. Like giving them, like update emails and like stuff like that. Because like even though like I get annoyed by that, some people like that, like and another thing is like you want to have like in the jazz world you get a lot of fans that are like students, So it's just like that's cool, but at the same time, you kind of just want normal people to come to your shows, like just people that come to play different, you know?
Yeah, it's like that's the funny thing about going to clubs too, because you can tell like you go to the Vanguard or something, and some nights it's all music students, you know, and that's great too, you know. But then there's also like the tourists and people who have nothing to do with music. It's almost like two sides of the spectrum entirely.
Yeah, and I see a lot with these cats, like like even with Mike Mitchell, man, he's a great friend of mine, and like the way he does his shows and the way he interacts with the audience, that's how you do it, like because it's like really, it's okay to play jazz, like there's nothing wrong with it. Like I love playing jazz as well, but it's just like it's a smaller group of people that listen to it, so you have to play more things, That's why I do a lot of pop stuff.
Well, yeah, you're talking about playing pop stuff, and you're lucky that you got a chance to do that because some people play jazz, but then they do like other GB type stuff to pay the bills, but you're not really doing quote unquote, I wouldn't call it GB. You're playing with the
I do some GB stuff. I do.
yeah.
Everybody does, honestly.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's just like I need to like actually at this point I feel like I just want to concentrate on branding because like I think that people just need to know that I exist. Like it's just like I can't just be this like nebulous like figure that like that just exists in the ether, like oh wait, who's Aaron Burnett? Did he come out? Did he come out? Where did he come from? It's just like I've been here for a long time, and I'm just like, it's time to like really focus on that. Because I think it's important because like, there's tons of people that would like your stuff that are not musicians, and it's okay to have musicians, but like, you really do need to have normal people. Like, I'm not saying normal, like normal, but like just people that aren't musicians that like to support you. Because I've been building that up, and I get people to come to shows that are not musicians.
That's so cool. Well, and that's the thing. You're in the 21st century, and you want to have that. We're in it's a new time completely. I also wanted to ask you too because I remember one time like I put on Facebook a status. I said like I asked a question. I said well, we know Coltrane was like technically, unlike anything else. But I also thought like if people got close to that, it would be like Brecker and Liebman. But then your name came into my head as well, on a technical level. And I know that's something you strive for while, having your own voice too. I wanted to ask you who's non-jazz that influenced you the most when it comes to the technique and everything.
Oh, that's definitely classical, like Bach and like Scriabin and what else was that? I play a lot of violin pieces. I'll just like transpose them and just like get them under my fingers. So, like I've been doing flute pieces. That's what actually helps the technique. Like, you do that kind of stuff, and then if you go transcribe something, it's a little bit easier. So when I transcribe like Dexter Gordon these days, like I'm getting those lines a lot faster just from like shedding like Bach, because it has a similarity to it in a way, but you're not gonna get that swag and that swing unless you like actually transcribe these people. And
Definitely.
and I
Yeah.
think a lot of younger musicians, like people might like not agree with this, but I think a lot of younger musicians get clout a little too fast, and they like skip over things, and you're looking for them. You're looking to them for like, oh, can you be an aficionado? I know you're 28, but can you be an aficionado? No, they actually can't, unless you're like a straight up prodigy, which is like very rare.
Yeah, when you use the word prodigy, I've always felt I'm trying to let go of being as competitive these days. Now I know do you have that competitive drive you think to not just with yourself, but do you feel like you wanna are you competitive just overall in general with other
Well, I mean,
saxophonists?
I'm like forced to be competitive, and it's just like at this moment, like with this branding thing, like, I had a thing where I was getting into like the avant-garde and everything, but now I'm not so much into it as much as I was. Like when I was young, when you're young, you're like, oh, I want to do all this new stuff. Oh yeah, I want to be free, and I want. But then when you get older, you're like, damn, I kind of want to do something conservative. I want to like play a nice song with vocalist. You know what I'm saying? Like to showcase that, like there's some versatility there, and like there's a reason I got 2 grant certificates. It's not just because like I'm just like lucky. It's because I was a part of Esperanza's project, and that adding me to the project completed the sound. You know,
And you've got to work. You mentioned Esperanza, and you've gotten to work with some great people.
Esperanza's a she's a
Oh,
she's a beast.
oh, unquestionably.
Yeah, she runs a very tight ship, and her music is really great.
Yeah, I love her playing. There's one video of her playing with Herbie that I watched like on YouTube. It would not be what it was without her playing the bass, you know?
And she has such a like. I saw her recently at Lincoln Center. She tore the house down. It was great, And she has a very like interesting way of approaching it. She put a little political stuff in there, and it was great. I had a great time, And I went backstage and hung out with her, and it was fun. And there's some Will Smith was there, but that was interesting.
Yeah, I also, would working with her be what you're most grateful for in your career, you think?
I would say yeah, because like with like Esperanza, like she believed in me, and that's why I have a lot, I have to give her a lot of credit for just believing in me and playing with me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and
My sister, I've known her for years.
And it goes back to mentioning what what I said earlier when you were with her in Newport. It was like, yes, I was just like, I felt joy for you because we knew each other at Berklee and everything. So let's talk a little. Speaking of Berklee, and we know that jazz education is kind of backwards in a sense, and it's really hard to.
Oh, Berklee. Oof. I like how they break up their harmony classes. You can teach all that in 2 classes. You don't need to break it up like 4.
Yeah, I mean, if you had
you know.
if you could if Berklee said to you, Aaron, we want to bring you in to just totally revamp the program, and you're going to be able to add a new class that's required of all the music students, what would you want them to know?
Um, it depends on what music they're trying to do.
Well, let's just say all jazz students at Berklee are now required to take Aaron Burnett 101.
I would have them transcribe. I would have them transcribe, and I would have them like actually come up with their own music based on the transcriptions. To like kind of develop like a sound within them that they can like kind of hone in on. Because some guys are really good at like mimicking, and some guys are really good at like making their own sound. So I'm not saying either one's better, but it's just like some people. But it is tiring sometimes when you hear like, oh, this guy sounds like Wayne Shorter, and he's really trying to sound like Wayne Shorter. You're just like,
Yeah, I've always felt that developing your own voice it's gonna be the reason people avoid it is because there's gonna be so much more failure on the bandstand.
oh yeah, definitely. It took me a lot of trial and error just to get to a point where I'm like comfortable with it sound. Because like the first 2 albums I did for Big Machine, I didn't like the way I sounded on those albums. I was like, it's not swing, but it doesn't need to be actually swinging, but like just to have the rhythm like pop and swing. I feel like I'm doing that a lot more recently, than
Yeah.
before. Because before it was just, whew,
Yeah, let's
I was
talk a
hearing a
little.
million ideas a second.
That's great. And you've gotten a chance to play at so many places and stuff. And a lot of things one of the reasons I started this podcast too is because musicians go through a lot of stuff where they may not be dealing with the nicest people in management or clubs. And, there's times where
Don't get me started.
I know. Well, that's why I've always, there's only one time I actually walked out of a gig I was supposed to play. I just literally walked out. Have you ever done that, or have you ever been close to it just because you just couldn't take it?
There was one time this piano player invited this weird Congo player. So I can't stand this guy. And like he didn't even tell me he was in the room. I literally walked in there. I was like, "Well, you better tell this guy to leave right now." I'm straight up, And
Hmm.
he made the guy leave.
Oh man.
I was like, I'm not dealing with any like stress or like any of that today, And it's just like once you get like, been here this long, it's like,
Yeah, something just kind of like you know, it's not like you snap or anything. You're like, I'm just not doing it anymore. It's not worth it. It's going to harm the music to be stressed out in that way.
Yeah, exactly. I told him that, and he was like, "Oh no, 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 I'm just gonna get rid of him." I'm like, okay, but basically, I just think right now it's just like it's been like a little tumultuous with like looking stuff because a lot of people like if you're like Esperanza and like people like that, of course they Esperanza can hook herself up with like a tour and everything, but I feel like it's tougher when like I put out albums and everything, but like the last album I did, that one I think is like kind of more like where I'm going, and it's gonna like probably like get more groovy for the next one.
Hmm.
Like more grooves and like stuff that I like to listen to and stuff like that. I'm gonna do like a new album, but I gotta figure out who's gonna put this out. But you know,
Well, what do you think it is about your playing that other musicians notice in particular, or what do you hope that's the reason they're hiring you, that what you're trying to convey?
well, I think what Corrine tells me, she's like she just loves the energy because when I come in, I have like a really jovial kind of energy, and like it kind of elevates like the performance because I'm like really vibing and like I play a solo and I'm like looking at the audience and like trying because she gives me a lot of solos, like a lot. Like like sax players don't usually get solos like this in a pop hit,
No, that's awesome. That's all.
And she like just she's so kind and so like she's very angelic in a way. Like the way she conducts everything, she's always sweet. She's always like understanding. It's like a privilege, honestly, to work with her. And she gives me a lot of freedom, and I'm like actually writing music for her next album
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, who
right
do
now.
you want to
I hope
work
she
with
takes me.
now?
I hope it's good enough.
No, no, no. Who do you want to work with that you haven't worked with yet?
Well, I was working with Tain, and I kind of want to like reconnect with Tain like pretty soon here, because I was going down to his place and playing with him. It's like,
Should call him Michael
that
Fein. Call him,
that was a learning experience. I'll tell you that.
yeah, call Michael Feinberg. He works with him sometimes now too.
Yeah, I mean, I would. I told him I was going to bring a bass player that I normally play with that I was telling him about. So Nick Jazzback, I told him I was going to like there. So if Feinberg wants to go there, I'll go. Okay. I'm just saying, like um, I did tell him about Nick, so I was going to try to.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that you guys, that would be so great to watch you work together. Now, what about if
I'm ready to. I'm ready to play with him now.
yeah, now you're ready, right?
Before I was like, oh, you know, I was just getting my butt kicked up there. He called me to play the jazz gallery for 2 days, and I was just like, oh crap. Like, it was we played all his music and like, Tane's got some tough stuff.
When you're playing with Tane, you're saying, "Oh, that was like really, really hard," at the jazz gallery and stuff.
Oh no, I was just extremely nervous.
Oh, you were nervous.
Oh yeah, I was like,
How do you override the
it's
nerves
like
though? What
playing.
do
It's
you
like playing with your mentor. You're like,
how do you override the nerves to
Well, the second concert, I just went. First concert I was nervous. The second one I just went along with it. And then I kept the contact. We would play at his. He has a huge place where he has all this like gear and he lives. It's like a church. Man.
Oh, in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool place.
Well, what about if you could go back in time and play with anybody from the 60s?
Oh wow. I would like to play with Freddie Hubbard.
Freddie.
Yeah, I like who else? Definitely Andrew Hill. And like these are guys. Andrew Hill, I'm discovering so much from this guy. This guy's like underrated, super
Yeah.
underrated.
Now, we all have our certain, you know, jazz tracks that we go back and listen to like for years and years for inspiration. What are there any of those that you keep just revisiting?
Well, like a lot of the Coltrane records, Sonny Spit, some of the vocalists like Sarah Vaughan and Cheryl. I've actually been doing a lot of foundational stuff. I'm really like getting into it, like even like Sidney Bechet and going all the way back because I felt like there were holes in my own playing, so I wanted to like kind of fill them up, and so people like honestly, I should be like playing with everywhere. But it's just like I think that people like kind of pinpoint me in one location. It's like, oh well, he just does free avant-garde.
So right now you kind of feel like, I'm able to do all these things. It's just like, let's just someone just hand me the ball in a sense and let's run,
Well, yeah, I think it's more or less like I had management and it didn't work out, so like I'm more or less looking for a booking agent right now.
Hmm.
But the thing is, like, you have to like your numbers have to be solid. I have decent numbers, but I don't play enough shows, so I need to like play. Because if I was doing like Winter Jazz Fest and all these other things, like but these people are so they're strange about the booking, but they kind of stick to the same people usually. And they'll branch out a little bit, but I noticed it's like the same names over and over again. So I was just like, well, maybe I just need to like, it's just not the time yet.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of clubs are still, some of the masters are, they're they're still playing, they're still doing it, and they need a place for themselves. Nonetheless, there are still, younger people who need to be heard.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I guess I'm still young technically.
You're still young, yeah.
Yes.
Well, you're like in your early 40s, something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You still look the same as when you were in your 20s, in my opinion.
Thank God. But yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I don't know. It's just like right now, it's like it's really pertinent for me to like just let people know that I'm doing a lot of different, like that I can do a lot of different things. Because I can play straight head gigs, play pop. It's just you gotta let people know. You have to like convey like this like kind of like leadership qualities and like this is what I'm focusing on right now. Just to like so people when they encounter me or they talk to me like, oh, this guy like really has a vision, instead of like, oh, this guy's wild. He's playing a bunch of crazy avant-garde stuff. I'm just like, look.
no, I mean you definitely have the ability to do so much, and I've always.
Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with avant-garde. I'm just saying, like, it's just like you're being grouped into like.
No, you feel that people put you into a box and you want them to know, like, just because I do this, that has no implication that I can't do other things.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, people pigeonhole you. Like, you have one video of yourself, like doing one crazy thing, and then like all of a sudden you can't play at a straight ahead club because, oh, you're too out there or something.
And the funny thing about that, I'm so out there, right? But they're not even really booking jazz a lot of these times. Like Vanguard does, but like they're gonna
Yeah, the
get
Blue Note, it's
pop. They're
not.
gonna get like they had Corrine play there for 4 days. They branch out a little bit. So if you really look at the scene, people like Thundercat and like Thundercat's considered pop, but it's also considered jazz. And like Kamasi Washington, like the stuff he does. When is Kamasi Washington swinging? Barely any time.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, it's a different time. I also feel like the pandemic changed a lot too. So,
oh yeah, I just try to figure
well, Aaron, I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for, taking the time to speak with me today. And, you're always someone I've looked up to as a musician. And I remember it's funny, I'm gonna make at Berklee, like one time, like you told me like, oh yeah, I heard you're good or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, Jesus, like Aaron said that, because I always looked up to your playing. So I
Oh
thought
wow, thanks, man. And you got to realize that sometimes. That's what I'm realizing. You have to like kind of get outside of yourself a little bit and like, portray yourself as
well,
somebody that people can actually trust and look up to.
yeah, well, I always thought it was so cool at Torch's recital, you were playing like almost like this guitar, like almost like what I would call like a speed metal technique, like on the
Oh
saxophone.
yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that's so cool. But well, Aaron, where can everyone find you on Instagram and stuff and all that good stuff?
My Instagram is just at Aaron DJUAN Devine, and I also have a couple other pages. I have one for my other group, Metadance, which is like a live house live.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Yeah, those are the main ones right now, and
Okay.
yeah, and my website's up. It's aarondburnett.com. But the thing is, I'm still working on it. So I apologize. It's not like completely finished yet. But you know how it is in today's music world. You have to do like 8 jobs.
Yeah, it's like 20 things you have to do. Thanks, man.